There's a concept out there called the moment of truth. Years ago, a gentleman named Carlzon was asked to take over a failing airline that was losing millions of dollars, Scandinavian Airlines, big airline over in Europe. And he said, well, how are we going to turn this thing around? And he came up with this concept called the moment of truth. And he defined the moment of truth in business is that any time a customer comes into contact with any aspect of a business, they form an impression. In his case, he had an airline, so it was any time a passenger came into contact with any aspect of the airline, they would form an impression. And what he did is he went to every city that Scandinavian Airlines had a presence in, and he gathered all of the employees, and he put them into a big airplane hangar, and he did a presentation, and he talked about managing the moment of truth. When that passenger has any interaction with anybody, they have that opportunity to form that impression. That's the moment of truth. And he talked about how they can go good and they can go bad. And he talked about how typical moments of truth might be if the passenger picks up the phone and makes a call and makes a reservation, which, by the way, today we use a computer. Back then, they used the phone. This is the early 1980s. And then on the day of departure, they check their bags at the curb. They go into the ticket counter and they check in there. And as they're walking toward their gate, maybe they see a flight attendant smile at them, and that's not a big moment of truth, but Carlzon emphasized that even the smallest moments of truth are so important. I think about companies like Disney. Every cast member or new employee they have, the cast member is what they call their employees, that comes to work at Disney has to go through 2 days of training, and they talk about managing the magic, which is the interaction that a cast member or an employee has with the guest of the theme park. And in a moment, you're going to see, I tie this into the experience I had in St. Louis when I visited the branch. And as soon as I walked in, how I was greeted. And as I walked back to talk to the person in the back at the counter who was going to give me the tour of the place, another employee smiled at me and waved at me, just as the flight attendant waved at me. Just as Disney says in their training program, you must manage every interaction, even the smallest ones, because those are just as important because they add up. So if you're at Disney, and by the way, I call it something like the 10-foot, 5-foot rule. Perhaps you guys are familiar with this, that within 10 feet or so of a customer, what they said, if you're within 10 feet or so of a guest, you should acknowledge that guest with a facial expression. Now, I added that at Disney, it needs to be a smile. This man walking by Mickey Mouse, and he scowls at the kid. That's not what they're trying to achieve. And it goes for any interaction that you have. You want to make it positive. You smile at your customer. And then within 5 feet or so at Disney, they say, acknowledge that guest verbally. Hi, how are you? Nice to see you. Just small, little interactive, conversation. You may not it's a wave and a hi. That may be all it is. But you're managing the magic. And that's what Disney calls it. And Carlzon called it managing the moments of truth when the flight attendant smiled. Not a big one, but an important one. And then, of course, you get to the gate and you're taken care of, and the flight attendant takes care of you. And Carlzon said, if we manage everything well, it's all going to come back. Customers are going to come back. Money's going to start happening again. We'll stay in business if that's what it takes. And you know what? It was great because Carlzon, with that simple idea of managing the moment of truth, turned around the entire airline to become not just financially successful again, but to become the most admired airline in the entire airline industry. All because people were managing the moments of truth. It's that simple. And that's what we need to do with our customers. We need to manage every interaction that we have with them. Every interaction. And by the way, Carlzon said they can go good way and they can be bad. I say there's a third way. And by the way, I have names for these, and you probably already figured out the good ones are moments of magic. That's that positive moment of truth. A bad one is a moment of misery. We avoid those. Those are complaints. Those are problems. And then there's a third moment of truth that Carlzon didn't talk about. He said they can be good and they can be bad, and we've already talked about it. I want to emphasize this again. Satisfactory is not good enough. A satisfactory or average moment of truth is what I call a moment of mediocrity. And mediocrity does not take us to the level that we are today, does not give us the success that we have today. I share this with the importance and the emphasis that every moment of truth, even if it's a moment of misery, is an opportunity to create a moment of magic. Every moment of truth. Don't settle for satisfactory. Bump it up just a little bit. Be consistently better than average, and you're operating at the zone of amazement.